So 2020 was certainly not the year that anyone expected. However, one thing that went as planned was the opening of Candemonium at HersheyPark, a new B&M hypercoaster. Now, this ride is incredible in almost every facet, but what comes next for this park that has very few needs in its coaster lineup? Let's dive in and find out. Here's what's next. To begin, let's take a quick look into the coaster lineup to see if there's any holes. Now, to begin, the park features two hypercoasters, Skyrush, which is a very intense airtime ride built by Intamin, and Candemonium, a smoother, more GP-friendly ride. Now, the park also features two more Intamins, and Stormrunner, a unique hydraulic launch coaster, as well as Fahrenheit, which is basically an Intamin Eurofighter. HersheyPark also features a B&M Invert and Great Bear, along with three different wooden coasters. Comet, which is a classic Woody and the oldest operating in the park. Wildcat, which is the original GCI that definitely shows its age. And finally, you have Lightning Racer, which is a pretty mild dueling wooden coaster. As for your clones, you have Sidewinder, which is a Vekoma boomerang, updated with the new comfy vest restraints, and Wild Mouse, which is your standard Wild Mouse model built by Mock Rides. Now, moving on to the family department, you have Laugh Tracks, a newer Mauer indoor spinning coaster that's actually a lot of fun, Super Duper Looper, which is an old school Schwarzkopf looper, and then you have Trailblazer, an Aerodynamics mine train. Finally, the newest one in the bunch is Coco Cruiser. It's the park's true kiddie coaster. So, all in all, the park's lineup is pretty stacked with some really strong rides. And with the park's pace of a new coaster about every 4 years dating back to the 90s, I doubt that Candemonium will really be the latest addition for that long. So moving on, overall, the most likely addition to this park I think is pretty obvious, and I think many enthusiasts would be delighted to see it. It would be an iBox conversion from RMC, also known as the Iron Horse treatment. This is where Rocky Mountain Construction comes in, and they use parts of an existing wooden coaster to lay new steel track and rework the layout, such as Steel Vengeance or Twisted Timbers. The only real question will come being which coaster gets the treatment. First and foremost, I believe that Comet is safe, as its location doesn't really allow much room to work, and with its history and its role as being a stepping stone coaster in the park, I think it's there to stay for the long haul. So next up is Lightning Racer, the dueling GCI. Now, this ride would make an incredible RMC. I really believe it could be in the same league as Twisted Colossus at Magic Mountain. The ride already has a great dueling layout, but it just lacks the forces that a new set of RMC designed airtime hills and inversions could really provide. However, this is located basically in the water park area in the back of the park, and it never really has much of a crowd. The park may be worried to invest heavily in a ride that would be in a bad location that may not draw as many riders. Not to mention, if down the road the park wants to invest more in its water park and expand, they may look to remove Lightning Racer, but if they RMC it, that becomes much more of an issue. Finally, you have the worst wooden roller coaster in the park by far, Wildcat. Now, this is definitely in the most need of an upgrade. However, I don't think the new layout would be as good as if they used Lightning Racers, but it makes more sense overall. It is slightly closer to the main part of the park, it's much more rough, and it never has any lines either. And most importantly, I think the overall park lineup would be a lot stronger with an RMC Wildcat and the normal Lightning Racer than the other way around. Hell, you know what? Call up GCI and give them their first redo on their first project, and let it be their first hybrid. GCI recently debuted a prototype steel track on White Lightning in Florida. So that takes care of the hybrid route, which would probably be the most predictable and practical. However, HersheyPark added a new hypercoaster this year, while already having a hypercoaster, so they're not very predictable. So what else could they add? So I think my bold prediction would be perhaps they would find room for a B&M wing coaster. Now, why I think this may happen is for a few reasons. Firstly, the park needs capacity coasters. Looking at rides like Comet, Fahrenheit, Wildcat, and Laugh Tracks, they're all very low capacity rides, and as this park grows, its resort and the park itself, it just needs more capacity. Next, they've worked with B&M in the past, with Candemonium and also Great Bear, and it seems to offer a pretty different experience from anything else in the park and in the area around, even if Skyrush has wing seats. Now, where could a wing coaster actually fit? I think by far the best spot is where Wildcat currently stands. Now, the plot is currently 600 feet by 400 feet, which is pretty substantial. Looking at similar rides like X-Flight at Six Flags Great America, that sits on a 300 by 500 foot plot, and even if they wanted to go the launch version similar to Thunderbird at Holiday World, that ride is 600 feet by 500 feet, so a little bit bigger but nothing that couldn't be fixed. Now, I think the park could easily make a unique wing coaster work here, and it would look beautiful from the road in that front plot of land. So, most importantly, when could we see these rides built? Now, the big if here is the economic repercussions from the 2020 pandemic. Now, I think Hershey will take a few years off either way with Candemonium opening up in 2020, so perhaps 2023 for a conversion, and maybe 2027 for a wing coaster after that? Conversions are typically cheaper than ground-up coasters anyway. Even Zadra, which was a ground-up iBox hybrid, cost only around $15 million US, about half of Candemonium's projected budget. So that's going to be all for this edition of What's Next. Now, which coaster model would you like to see come to the sweetest place on Earth? What park should we tackle next? Comment below, and don't forget to follow Island Coasters on Instagram for daily content and updates. Till next time, that's all from the shores of Island Coasters.